Welcome to Conservation Fridays. Today we have Sara Syswerda from the Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. She's going to talk to us today about the Science Strong program.
Yeah. So, hi, I am super excited that you are here with us today. I work over at Pierce Cedar Creek Institute. I've been here for 9 years, and I am just excited to be able to share some of what we've been doing. So I'm going to just give you a little background on the Institute because it ends up being important for context related to the program. So the Institute has been open, really the buildings have been open since 2001. The actual visioning for the Institute started back in 1998. So Bill and Jesse Pierce were entrepreneurs that helped start FlexFab. And so they ended up wanting to create a space within the community where people could be able to enjoy nature and be able to have that sort of experience of being out in nature themselves. And so for them, the Institute is a piece of that, and the Science Strong program ends up being kind of an extension of trying to get more folks out into nature and getting experiences. So we do have facility rental. We also are a biological field station, and so we do environmental research. And so that really is geared towards trying to help folks get a better understanding of the environment. And so we're able to share that through some of our school programs as well and be able to connect that. So thinking about us as what I think most folks within the community think of us as, a nature center within the community. We have 850 acres. We have about 9 miles of trails. And so the Science Strong program is sort of nested within that nature center program. And this program started in 2014. Essentially, the big focus is helping to improve science literacy here in the county. And this has really, for us, has looked like us being able to offer different programs that support science education within the school districts. So primarily, we are focused on Berry County for that education and outreach. And so that has mainly included Delton Kellogg, Hastings, and Thornapple Kellogg, although we occasionally do work with districts that are a little farther away. But for most of our programming, those 3 districts are the main ones that we focus on. So we have been working through those districts to be able to offer teacher trainings, and some of that has been sort of at the schools, and a lot of it has been here at the Institute. We have also done classroom and field trip programs, and also been supporting science resources. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about those main pieces and what that looks like on the ground so that you can kind of get a better feel for each individual portion of this, because we think, for really these classrooms and these teachers and students to be supported, they need to have all 3 of these sort of components together. So for school programs, and this sort of ends up looking in a few different ways, but in general, this is either me or some of our other staff working directly with classes, either in their classrooms, in their schoolyards, or here at the Institute. We occasionally will also go to other sites within the community that might be closer. So for example, this fall, I took some students to the Thornapple River in Hastings to do some exploring in there and to do some river sampling. In general, when we talk about this, I would say the vast majority of our programs are for pre-K through 5th. We do occasionally do, last week I did some middle school programs. We do occasionally do high school programs, but just due to the way those grade levels are set up, most of them, especially middle school, high school, are not able to take field trips generally. And if they do, they take 1 main field trip per year. And the other piece is often if you are having them out, you need to have facilities to take 8 to 10 classes at a time. So you would take an entire grade level, and we don't have the capacity to offer that big of a program. So we generally, for most of our programs, are looking at that pre-K, elementary kind of age range. And so I would say at this point, I haven't added up our April numbers, but we're probably somewhere between 36 and 37,000 contacts we've made since the program started directly through these school programs kind of venue. So the other one of the other pieces that we have is teacher training and coaching. And this has really looked different a little bit since COVID. But we have done a variety of things from in-person workshops. We have done a lot of virtual trainings, and those have been both side of synchronous. So everybody's on Zoom together. We're working together in small groups or in large groups doing discussions. And then we've also developed asynchronous, so modules that teachers can complete on their own. So for example, this spring I've had a bunch of teachers that have completed those who needed extra continuing education clock hours. And so those are little 1-hour modules that teachers can do and get continuing education credits. I've also been doing book studies. And so we have another one coming up this summer that we're doing with teachers. And that was something we started during COVID that the teachers have really liked. We did the one this past fall that had about 20 teachers that were participating. And it's just been a good way of getting teachers digging into the content, but also forming a little bit closer relationship with each other and also with some of the educators within sort of the professional community, as far as some of us who are helping teachers learn science content. So we've also this year in particular been working on coaching some of the new teachers. So that has been, a lot of it's been either going in, helping them plan, helping them look at curriculum and try to make decisions about what kind of things they need to adjust for their students. Some of it's been going into co-teach. And so that has been, a really good experience for me in particular. I'm the main person who's been doing that. But it has also been, I think, really good as far as helping develop some of the newer teachers. We have a lot of new teachers within the last 2 to 3 years that have moved into positions where they are teaching science. And, often just having an extra person there to help ends up being really important. So one of the other big pieces we've been working on is trying to increase access to science supplies. And so this generally, for elementary is a big limiter. Most of the districts that we work with have some resources, but not necessarily everything a teacher might need. Some of them bring in science kits, some of them don't. So a lot of what we do is being able to have some materials that are available for lending, trying to help with curriculum materials. A big push this year has been trying to improve some of the reading materials, so the nonfiction science resources that are available both in the classroom and in the school libraries. This came up as an issue when we went into some of the libraries and realized a lot of their science books were mature. And so we've been doing a lot of working with librarians to try and figure out what resources do they need and trying to write grants to help support some of those resources. And so that has been really, I think, a useful thing to think about, because it isn't just what's going on in the classroom, but it creating sort of this, what I think of as like an ecosystem of science enrichment and learning within the schools, so that those teachers are supported, those students are supported, and so that they have what they need to be successful. And so I can sort of talk some more about, some of our programs. We have done other programs over the last few years, but those are sort of the main 3, what I think of as like main things that we work on when thinking about education and the Science Strong program. But I'm happy to answer questions or be able to help explain a little bit more about what that looks like.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. That was a lot. You guys do so much more than I realized. So we really appreciate that. If there are any questions, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. And if you would like to contact Sarah, her information is up there on that last slide.
And I can give you, sort of examples of what stuff we've done. Even this week, I had out 4 third grade classes who were doing things about structure and function, so animal adaptations, and then they were doing some engineering with it. And then we also had 2 kindergarten classes out this week who are learning about animal needs and sort of how animals are able to change their environment and what that looks like sort of on the ground. We were outside for a lot of that one. And I also went to a couple family nights. One of the preschools had a science night that we brought stuff to and gave away free science books. And then we went to one of the other elementaries who was also doing a family night and had some activities there. And yeah, so I mean, it varies every week, but it's, it's kind of different. So yeah. So yeah.
We have one question, and it is, do you have a background in teaching?
So this is actually kind of a funny story. So I have a bachelor's in biology, and then I have a PhD in crops and soil science and ecology and evolutionary biology and behavior from MSU. My graduate fellowship was in teaching in K-12 classrooms. So it's called the GK-12 fellowship. And so that was something I did when I was at MSU, where it puts scientists into K-12 classrooms to be able to learn how to teach better while helping support science teachers so that they can learn more science. And so from that fellowship that I spent probably like 5 years in K-12 classrooms, I ended up working in the Department of Teacher Education at MSU for a couple of years after that. And then stayed on coordinating K-12 programs over at Kellogg Biological Station, and then came over here. So I have taken some formal training in teaching. A lot of it has been actual, like just on the ground kind of work. At this point, I've taught pretty much every grade level from preschool through grad school in formal classes, and then done community programs and public programs all the way up through like seniors kind of groups. So on any given year, I probably teach all of those age levels.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's an incredible.
And so I also, a lot of my research that I've done in the most recent probably decade or so has been thinking about teacher education and student learning. So when I was in teacher education at MSU, we did a lot of research on how teachers and students think about environmental phenomenon. So thinking like the water cycle or carbon cycling or biodiversity, we would actually do like research on students and teachers and think about how that learning progression happens as students get older, and also how teacher understandings of different phenomenon impact how they teach students. So a lot of my historic background, like research wise, was on like biogeochemical cycles, so carbon, nitrogen, and water cycling. And so that ended up sort of leading into some of the work that I did, thinking about how people learn about those things. And so for me, like a lot of the teaching stuff, I really like thinking about how people develop understanding of some of these practices. I also more recently have been learning more about how people develop understanding about engineering, because that's part of the science standards in Michigan now. And that is something that was new in the science standards that I've had to learn more about. So if you have small children, that is something that from when we were young to now, they start having engineering in the science standards at kindergarten. And so we start doing engineering projects as part of the curriculum in kindergarten.
That is so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm really excited to hear that. And for anyone who doesn't know, and for viewers in the future, we are very lucky also to have Sara on our board for the Berry Conservation District. So she brings a lot of valuable insight, information, and just know-how to that. So thank you so much for presenting today. And